Hello everyone, hope you all are doing great. I am Deep Mentor. Welcome back to my channel. In the last tutorial we covered dictionaries and sets. In this tutorial we will be covering while loop and functions. Let's start with the while loop. A while loop in Python is used to iterate over a block of code while a condition is true. When we use a for loop for iterating over a collection or a range of numbers, the number of time the for loop will be executing is predetermined because we already know the size of the collection or the range of the numbers. But in case of while loop, the condition can change inside the loop itself. Let's start with this example of printing multiples of 2. Here you can see we are iterating till the index is less than equals to 10. For using while loop, ensure that the condition is false at some point to break out of while loop. Otherwise you will end up running an infinite loop as shown. We can also control when the loop will end from inside the loop as shown. Here, based on the user input, we are exiting the while loop. At times, these conditions for the while loop may become lengthy and it would be better to use a flag instead of whole condition within the while statement. The other way of breaking a while loop is using a break statement. Here we are running a while loop which ideally, because of the true condition, should run infinitely, but we will be using the break statement to break out of the loop. Such while loops with a true condition are used a lot in gaming, where there is such a loop and based on the user inputs or different activities by the characters of the game within the game, the loop is exited. I have created a game in Python. I will attach the link to the tutorial of the same in the description. Please check out the tutorial if you like the demo. Coming back to the tutorial, the next statement we will be covering is continue. Continue statement is used to skip rest of the loop for one of the iteration and continue with the loop. The demo shows the same. Here, when the user chooses to skip a number, we won't be printing the number for that iteration. The loop will continue as normal. Let's now see how we can use while loop with collections. If you want to process a collection and populate another collection with the output, then you should go for while loop instead of for loop. In the example, we will try to segregate even and odd numbers. We will be using percentage sign, which is called modulo operator and is used to get the remainder when dividing a number from another. So here we will be dividing the number by 2 and checking the remainder value. If it is 0, then it is an even number. Note that we are popping the elements of a list here. Thus, the while loop will end at some point. Another use case can be to remove all the occurrence of a value from a collection. Notice the two use cases we just discussed. It is must that the list is modified so that the condition will break at some point. You can also use while loop for populating the collections. Here we are creating a list, dictionary and set using a while loop. You can also work with tuple using while loop, but as you are aware, tuples are immutable and we can't modify tuples. But that doesn't restrict you from using tuple with while loop for other use cases. Functions are a block of code in Python. This block of code is associated with a function name. Functions provide us capability of breaking a big program into smaller tasks. These functions can be called as many times as required within the code base. The function can accept some arguments and also can return a value. We have been using built-in Python functions like print and int so far. In the next section, we will see how we can write our own functions and call those functions from anywhere in your code base. Here we are defining a function that prints a message to welcome users to the channel. We can call this function as many times as we want. We can pass some values to the function. These passed values are called arguments. Sometimes it's confusing to understand difference between parameters and arguments. In fact, many of the programmers use them interchangeably. But the difference between parameters and arguments is parameters are the variables that are declared within the function, while the arguments are the values that you are sending from the calling side. Think of it like this. Parameters are associated with a function and define how the function will behave, while arguments are the values which the calling side sends to the function. You can have as many parameters as you require in your functions. While sending the argument, there are two ways to send the arguments. The one we have been using so far are called positional arguments, where each position is matched with corresponding values. The other way to send the arguments is called keyword arguments, where you provide the name of the parameter while sending the arguments. If needed, you can also define default values for parameters. You can return a value from a function using the return statement. You can also make a parameter optional by putting the default value as empty or none. You can also return a collection from a function. Please note that any change made to the collection within a function is permanent. That is, any change you make to the collection within the function will also reflect on the calling side as shown. If you want that the value on the calling side should not change for the collection, then send a copy of the collection as argument instead of the collection itself. Note a tuple doesn't have a copy method. For creating a copy of a list, you can also make use of colon within a square bracket as we discussed in the lists tutorial. There might come scenarios where the number of parameters required for a function might not be known in advance. In such scenarios, you can send an arbitrary number of positional arguments using asterisk while declaring the parameter. This parameter will hold the values in form of a tuple. You can also combine positional argument with arbitrary argument. And in such scenarios, first the positional arguments will be mapped to corresponding parameter, and then rest of the arguments will be used as arbitrary arguments by the function. Like positional arguments, you can also have arbitrary number of keyword argument. These values will be stored in form of key value pair in the function parameter. To declare a parameter which can hold arbitrary keyword arguments, we have to use double asterisk while declaring the variable. Individual keys within this parameter then can be accessed like we access dictionary keys. You can also combine arbitrary keyword argument with normal arguments like we did for arbitrary positional arguments. You can combine arbitrary positional argument with arbitrary keyword argument. Just you have to ensure that the arbitrary positional argument is second last in list of parameter and the arbitrary keyword argument is last in the list of parameters. Let's now see some of the PAP8 guidelines for functions. PAP8 guidelines suggest that you should have a descriptive name for the function. The first line within the function should be a comment describing what the function is supposed to do. As you are aware, PAP8 guidelines recommend restricting your code lines to 79 characters. So in case your number of parameters exceed that limit, it's recommended to break your parameter list into multiple lines. To do the same, after the function name, start with an open bracket, then press enter, then put two tabs and start writing parameters in each line. One line can have more than one parameter and every line should have the mentioned two tabs. Once you reach the end of the parameter list, just close the bracket in that line. Another recommendation by PAP8 is that the import statement should be the first statement in your file. Only if you have a comment on your file that would come before the import statement. Another PAP8 recommendation is every function definition that you have should be surrounded by two empty lines. Any Python file with some functionality is a module in Python. You can import a module into another file using import statements. When you import a module to a file, what Python does is it copies the code of that module to that file before the program runs. This all happens in background and you don't see any change in the file you created. There are a couple of different ways to import a module in your codebase. First is to import the whole module using the import statement. In the example, we are importing function tutorial and then we can access the individual functions of the module using the dot operator. We can also provide an alias name to the imported module. Here we have provided alias name as ft to the module. Now we can use ft to access functions of the module. You can import just a particular function from a module using from and import keyword. Again, you can provide an alias name to these imported functions as well. While importing the functions directly, be cautious that you might conflict with the already defined functions in your code base. If you want to import all the functions in a module, you can provide asterisk instead of a function name in the from import statement. Congratulations, you now know how to use while loop and also how to write your own functions. In next tutorial, we will see how we can do object-oriented programming using classes in Python. Please subscribe to my channel to get notified for future tutorials. Thank you.